light within light, or not light within light. He was talking about the concept within Neoplatonism, where you have the
Right.
one, then you have the nous, and so on and so forth, right?
Hmm.
And he made a previous video where he kind of talks about where he says the one is the one, and the nous is God. And then I was talking to our one of our favorite philosophers par excellence, Sayyid Nizamuddin Ahmad Sahab of Dallas,
Hmm.
and well, actually now he's the Prophet Muhammad Chair of Shia Islamic Studies at the International University in Florida.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah,
I know that.
so yeah, he started this semester, mashallah.
Oh, nice.
So I reached out to him, being someone who's an expert on philosophy, particularly Islamic philosophy, and the influence of Western Platonists and Neoplatonists and
Mm-hmm.
Aristotelian philosophy on Islamic philosophy. I asked him about this, and he explained that my understanding of it was the infamous or famous Hadith al-Qudsi, where it says, "I was a hidden treasure and I wanted to be known, so I manifested reality unto itself." And we understand that reality to be Haqiqat al-Muhammadiyah
Mm-hmm.
and the 14 Masumin.
Mm-hmm.
And then in today's video, she kind of talks about that. So it's, like the one, then our understanding and that understanding of the Islamic Neoplatonists like Ibn Sina, who, if people are not, your viewers are not familiar with, he actually was Shia. He was Ismaili originally, and then he became a Thashari. But,
Mm-hmm.
even like someone like Suravardi, and,
Mm-hmm.
obviously Mullah Sadra was definitely Shia. He was in Safa with Iran, and was the founder of the school of Isfahan. They actually, explain where, the one within the Platonic concept of the one, it's God, right?
Mm-hmm.
God, the unrealized, the unmanifested, and then the nous is that manifested reality of God, which is what we would call Nur Muhammadi, right?
Right.
And when even within the works of Plotinus, who is known as the father of Neoplatonism, he even states in his works that you know the nous is basically the one reflecting onto itself in the form of the nous, right? And then you get the first intellect, so on and so forth. So if we as Muslims, we understand this actually fits very almost too perfectly in the Hadith al-Qudsi, where God said, the Hadith I just repeated, and that we all acknowledge as Muslims
Mm-hmm.
that the first creation or the first manifestation of divine light was Nur Muhammadi or Haqiqat al-Muhammadi. So, it's an interesting little thing. So that's what inspired this poem.
Yeah, I say it's an interesting thing you started up with. I wasn't, planning to talk about it, but one thing
Hmm.
led to the other, and
Hmm.
I don't want to skip this because it's a very important thing
Hmm.
to bring up. And first of all, welcome to the Drawing Room Experts
Thank you. Thank you. Always
for
a pleasure.
another very good discussion. I'm pretty sure.
Hmm.
So, the thing about philosophy is, I am such a huge fan of, um, you know, I don't know it sounds very, you know, I'm like as if I'm giving myself a pat on the back, but it sounds,
Hmm.
I'm a fan of intricate thinking. Like I really want to be surprised by
Hmm.
how things are manifested, right?
Hmm.
So philosophy kind of helps me do that because it just gives you that edge of thinking things outside of a very materialistic box, right?
Hmm.
Okay, when we talk about causation, for example, when we talk about the whys of the world, the
Hmm.
WHYs, तो
Hmm.
वो उसको explore करना मुझे बड़ा अच्छा लगता है. But one of the
Hmm.
things that people criticize philosophy for, because as you know, most of the time in our circles, philosophy is, and rightfully so, is used for religious purposes.
Hmm.
ठीक है? कि when we talk about the existence of God, when we talk about the need of imamat, when we talk about the need of a masum imam, when we talk about, all of that stuff,
Hmm.
philosophy kind of takes a huge plays a huge role in that. But one of
Hmm.
the criticism that philosophy gets is that it has the tendencies to overcomplicate things. Now,
Hmm.
again, this is me again, the intricate thinker in me,
Mhm.
defining things, and I, of all people, would definitely appreciate it. That
Mhm.
what do you mean by overcomplication? Does that mean
Mhm.
that the opposite of it is not complicated, right? Do you mean that am I taking things to a depth where there is no depth? That's what
Mhm.
overcomplication means, right? But if
Mhm.
that's but if that's not the case, then we're not actually overcomplicating. We're actually giving it is giving it its due,
Mhm.
right? So how do you what do you say about that when people kind of say that philosophy overcomplicates, especially in comparison to science, which is very like, we do an experiment, we find evidence, and we move on. If you don't find evidence, that's done, that's over with. Philosophy
Mhm.
is more deeper than that. It
Mhm.
involves logic and mantak,
Yeah,
the
definitely.
drill. But how do you approach the overcomplications? And I say this very lightly, so I know what it
Mhm.
means, but
Yeah.
overcomplications of philosophical arguments.
So I would start by saying that one thing that I look for, well, before to answer that question, you brought up an excellent point, science, right?
Yeah.
If we originally look at philosophy, like what we call modern science or hard sciences, right? The
Hmm.
STEM, like you go back even like 100, 150 years ago,
Hmm.
there was no field of natural science. It was called natural philosophy.
Yes.
It stems
Yes.
from philosophy, right? And the thing is, I mean, these arguments are coming from people. Like, for instance, they're saying that philosophy is very complicated. Well,
Or it
so
overcomplicates the problem statement.
overcomplicates the problem. Well, I mean, I can go and say that to a cardiologist that you are overcomplicating this problem. If I go run and I stay away from, like
Unhealthy food.
unhealthy food, like artery clogging,
Yeah.
fats and trans fats and stuff, I'll be fine. But the thing is, that seems simplified to us today.
Yeah.
You go back 20, 30 years ago, these were complex things.
Yes.
Now, the thing is, philosophy in its entirety, it's wisdom, right? It's
Mm.
philosophy comes from the Greek word of the love for wisdom,
Mhm.
the love of thinking. So it's philosophy is basically the study, the ultimate study of the human mind,
Mhm.
it,
Yeah.
as
So,
is
so it's not.
psychology. And
So it's not like overcome. It's basically
it's
we.
overcomplicated because it's a because we don't understand the human mind. We do not understand the human psyche. And when I say psyche, I mean in the original sense of the word, not in the modern,
Yeah.
the psychological sense. Even that
Right.
is very confusing.
Yeah.
And it's this whole, like, I would say that philosophy, there is philosophy, right, in everything, because that's why even if you want to be the paramount expert in, let's say, computer science, you have a doctorate of philosophy in computer science.
ठीक है, ये तो
But
खैर
yeah,
these are more contemporary example
yeah.
जिसमें हम लोग कहते हैं ना कि it's all around you, but
Mhm.
how double click on that, say why everything is behind philosophy, like for example, uh,
So I would ask
how is
what,
philosophy behind science? Give me one example where it kind
well,
of like leads you from philosophy to science.
so let me ask you this. What is philosophy?
Philosophy is it's a very good question, but in my very basic understanding and my basic way to explain philosophy,
Hmm.
philosophy is, if I really simplify it, is the ability for a human being to ponder or ask the question why.
Hmm.
And the reason why, um, science, I feel like, stems from philosophy, as you rightfully
Hmm.
said,
Hmm.
is because a lot of the scientific discoveries would not have, I mean, all of the scientific discoveries would not have would have ceased to exist
Hmm.
if the human mind did not wonder why,
Hmm. Exactly.
right? And the whole debate about science and religion
Hmm.
is, that's why I feel like it's ironic,
Hmm.
because science kind of like stops, when they said, okay, who someone somewhere thought, oh, who made the moon? When they looked at the moon and said, who made that? Like, how did that came into existence?
Hmm.
Someone looked at the seas and say, why are the waves going up and down at certain times
Hmm.
of the month? Why there's
Mhm.
more waves in certain, oh, when the moon's out, actually, why is the moon kind of impacting the waves? Or why is it colder during certain times of the year and hotter during some other times of the year? These are questions that human beings had, and they kind of like, some of them made it the purpose of their lives to explore the answers to those questions, and they
Mhm.
came to a conclusion that, oh, this is happening because the earth moves, this is happening because the moon has gravitational pull, this is happening because, the earth is at a certain distance from the sun, that's how you get weathers and climates,
Mhm.
and so on and so forth. But
Mhm.
then, when we say, okay, then who's creating these rules, they say,
Mhm.
well, that's not, let's not go there, because now you're going into a loop of a question, right? To which I say, it's actually not a loop. There's only one answer to that. There's no
And
loop.
that's what it is, right? Where we and I actually blame one of the greatest philosophers of Western philosophy, circa 17th and 18th 16th and 17th century, by the name of Rene Descartes.
Yeah.
He's the reason that modern science exists, right?
Hmm.
He's this is the thing is we have gone into materialism and made materialism the end all be all of existence. And
Yeah.
I know that the other topic that we're going to discuss, actually, that is the ultimate, you know, the where we go when we'll go into relative morality within philosophy.
Hmm.
That is the ultimate philosophical end of materialism on the philosophical side, whereas us just working and producing
Hmm.
has become the ultimate end of your physical self, right? Um, so I guess on this, I would say that
So let's
philosophy.
let's dive into that, right? Let's dive
Yeah.
into that. Like,
Mhm.
how would you describe the the connection between philosophy and relative morality,
So
and
it's
why
a
do you say
branch.
that it's the
So
why do you see that's the ultimate end of philosophy?
so then we have to start with Western philosophy with Rene Descartes saying, I think, therefore I am.
Hmm.
And then he starts going, okay, whereas philosophy, the Platonist philosophy, which has is, and by the way, Platonic philosophy is still alive and well within the Islamic tradition. And if
Hmm.
anybody wants to know the name, there's a very famous Shia Alimuddin who's still alive right now by the name of Ayatollah Jawadi Amali,
Hmm.
who is probably the leading Platonist or Neoplatonist of our time, and along with his mentor, the late great Lama Tabatabai, who wrote
Mm.
Al Mizan.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, but in the West, what you have is when you started going from being pondering upon the universe unto itself and trying to find your place, and you said, no, nothing exists unless I know it exists. You got rid of God, right? Or
Mm. The idea of God.
the absolute in the Platonic form, and you said, no, I, the flawed creature, am the only reality, right? From
Mm.
there, you go another few hundred years, you get the Darwinian evolution, right? The theory of the Darwinian evolution, you get Newtonian physics, which, again, nothing wrong with these things,
Yeah.
but these are observations, but from an skewed point of view of where you're not looking at the grander scheme, you're looking at the microcosm of the id, right? Or the
Mm.
ego. And then you
Hmm.
get into psychology of the 18th century psychology of Sigmund Freud and the greatest philosopher that never was, in my opinion, uh, Friedrich Nietzsche.
Yeah, Nietzsche. Yeah.
Nietzsche. I mean, you like here's the thing, right? Like Nietzsche, I hate Nietzsche with a passion
Mhm.
because Nietzsche is everything that's wrong with Western moral philosophy, but he made the observations. He when he says God is dead, right?
Mhm.
Well, he didn't kill God.
He said the
God was
idea of
killed.
God is that.
Yeah, no, 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 not even that. I would say the guy who went to assassinate God was Rene Descartes.
Oh, he said that. I didn't know that.
I mean, when he's saying "I think, therefore I am," and he gets this ball rolling, and
Mm.
then on the flip side, on the religious side, you have the with all due respect to any Lutherans who might be listening, Martin Luther,
Mm-hmm.
great guy for proliferating the Bible. I totally understand and appreciate his view of taking that knowledge and making it available for the masses. But again, the problem that you run into is, especially you have this concept of the elite and the common, right? In Islam,
Mm.
especially in Arabic, we have this term called the awam versus the khawas.
Hamas, yeah.
Yes. There's a reason that you have the elite. And I'm not talking about the Illuminati. I'm not talking about, the Bilderberg group, or in the case of Pakistan, the establishment, right? The
Mm-hmm.
military. I'm talking about elite. There is um a group of individuals who have a better understanding than the rest of us. That's why you have prophets. That's why you have imams.
Yep.
That's why you have, scholars and leaders. Now, the role of these individuals, these so-called elites, is to prime the masses, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
why, like one of the things that we talk about with the coming of the imam, that I think we a lot of times, you know, woefully misunderstand and misinterpret when we say that the imam will come and our level of understanding will expand tenfold, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's not saying that, you know, like it's not going to be like some Bedouin, right? It has to be we as ourselves have to be physically and emotionally and mentally ready to remove to receive that information, right?
Correct.
Okay, and I'll give you an example, right? Imam comes now today. If the Imam comes and says, "Hey, here's the cure for cancer. Here's this warp drive you can do interstellar travel," right?
Mm-hmm.
That can work today because we have the the theoretical know-how of these things being possible, right?
Yes.
Now, if
Yes.
the Imam had come in 1850, right,
Mm-hmm.
in 1857, and came to Mirza Ghalib, for instance, right,
Yeah.
in India, or came to, some Joe Blow up in England or France somewhere, right?
Right. Right.
And he gave them warp drive, right, and he gave them cure for cancer. The germ theory didn't come into a thing until the in 19th century,
Mm-hmm.
right? Before
So
that,
they
they
didn't even
thought,
know that exists. They're like, what are
yeah,
you talking
now,
about?
yeah, you're telling them there's a cure for cancer. You're curing diabetes. You're giving us warp speed travel. And I say this because, like, at the time, 1850s, the fastest thing with this was the steam engine. The steam engine and its max speed was like I think like 60 miles an hour, which is like 120 kilometers. You're
जो कि अब
telling
अपनी
them
एवरेज गाड़ी अब इतना चलती है उससे
average
भी
guy,
ज्यादा
that's when you're going slow. You're
slow
getting
exactly
honked at
yeah
on 880, on
yeah
680, or like if you're out here on I-35, or if you're in Houston, I-10, you're getting, especially in Houston, you're getting honked at,
oh yeah
right? Like I
constant
honestly, like when I'm driving to Houston from Austin or going to Dallas from Austin, my average speed is about 75 to 80 miles an hour,
there you
right?
go and these are not
Plus,
centuries old these are like just recent past like
I
steam
mean,
engine wasn't just
yeah,
like a recent
I mean,
thing
1906, that's when the Wright brothers first flew the airplane.
yep
First
there
flew
you
the
go
airplane. 1906. That's only 100. What? We're in 2023. That's what?
yeah so it's like
Like,
just over 120 years
yeah,
close to
less
100
than,
yeah
yeah. And Yuri. We sent Sputnik in 1957
hmm.
to space. Right. That was the first satellite ever sent into space by the Russians,
Yeah.
the Soviets. Right. 1969, we went to the moon. That's 53 years ago. That's literally.
We still might have people who saw that live on television.
Oh yeah, no, we have people.
Yeah.
We have people that's only two generations back.
Hmm.
So when you come and say, going to that point, right, of understanding, you can't have understanding of like, so you have to raise the people to that level, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I was talking to someone, this was about like 15 years ago, one of my uncle's friends who is from Karachi himself, but he has relatives in Pata, or what used
Hmm.
to be FATA, right? The federally
Right.
administered tribal areas,
Now
which is now
Khyber
part of
Pakhtunkhwa.
Yeah, part of KPK. And he
Hmm.
said he knew people who thought the whole, and this, we're not talking about America, in America where they say, like this whole conspiracy theory of the moon landing being a hoax. Like, no, this guy was genuinely alive, like from a village. He did not believe that man could travel to space. He did not even understand the concept of an airplane. And this is like 2000s Pakistan,
यार
right?
यार फ्लैट अर्थर्स अभी तक एग्जिस्ट करते हैं, क्या बात कर
Yeah,
रहे हो?
flat earthers हैं यार. आप जो है, like you go try to explain to someone 100 years ago what the internet is. Like let's think about this, right?
जादूगर जादूगर समझेंगे
I
उनको।
mean, मौला अली का जो कौल है कि
हम्म।
वो मौला अली ने जो था, वो जो उनका एक सहाबी था जंग सिफ़ीन में, उसको दिखाते हैं उंगली को यूं करके, and he's able to see his family, right? Or something like that. And
हम्म।
the Maula Ali says, yeah, Rasulullah ka qawl hai, I think, I forget, one of the two, where he says that at the time of the Qaim, Imam Mahdi ke zamane mein, people will be able to talk to each other and they'll be miles apart. You and I are sitting 1,700 miles apart right now. We
राइट।
are in two different time zones.
एग्जैक्टली।
It's 6 p.m. for me, and it's 4 p.m. for you.
यप।
I mean, you go and you tell someone in 1980 that you're going to be recording a podcast with some guy who's like in a different time zone than you,
राइट।
and it'll be like we're talking right next to each other.
एग्जैक्टली। एग्जैक्टली। वैसे दैट्स इंटरेस्टिंग अबाउट uh, philosophy, and then that led to relative morality.
Hmm.
I think the one thing that really intrigues me about uh, because I think philosophy kind of led us to the idea of what reality is. जैसे तुम बात कर रहे
Hmm.
थे कि
Hmm.
हक क्या है, reality, truth क्या है, truth,
Hmm.
right? So I always had a very basic understanding that it meant that there could be relative truths,
Hmm.
but the fact that there is a relative truth in itself means that there is an absolute truth as well
Yeah.
somewhere.
So
That these all relative truths are traveling towards that to get to the absolute truth. So that's why I
if I
feel like
may,
relative morality as an idea kind of doesn't make sense to me, because that kind of like negates. Do you think that
exactly,
negates the idea of absolute truth?
I think so. I mean, to me, it's not even relative truths, right? It's degrees of truth.
Right, there you go. That's a better word. Yes.
Yeah, because the thing with what is relative, right? Like it comes from, again, another philosophical mind of the late 18th, early 20th century by the name of Albert Einstein, right?
Yeah.
The father of modern uh, physics,
Mm-hmm.
where he said the theory of relativity, right? Time is relative. The
Yeah.
thing is, you can't have relative morality, right? Like, for instance, you can have degrees of morality,
Mm-hmm.
but you cannot have your own version of morality, your truth, right?
Okay, what's the difference? What's the difference between a degree of morality और एक example के साथ बताओ. What's the difference between degree of morality? मतलब a thing is, for example, breaking a traffic light. ठीक है.
I'll give you a more serious and blunt example, right?
बोलो.
Murder, murder,
ठीक है.
right? कत्ल करना किसी को.
ठीक है.
अब, yes, relative morality says कि मेरा दिल कर रहा था, मैंने आपको ज़ेब भाई को आके गन से मार दिया, कत्ल कर दिया. I murdered
हम्म.
him, and I
हम्म.
should go free because in my morality, it's okay to murder someone without cause. Now, degrees of morality is, morality says the truth is, God's truth is, murder is wrong. And then
हम्म.
you have the asterisks, right?
Right.
In case of, okay, so why did Sarosh kill Zaib? Well,
Yep.
Zaib lunged at Sarosh
Mm-hmm.
and Sarosh murdered him in self defense.
Right.
That's a degree of truth, right? Or degree of morality. Like,
Okay.
still, if we could avoid, if I could avoid murdering you, that would be the
Mm-hmm.
right thing to do.
Okay.
But
It's a
I have to
variation of my
preserve,
morality.
yes. So I hope that that makes sense because morality itself, you can't have morality and be relative. I mean, relative morality, because that's just saying like my version of morality. It's just saying it's the
It's like fake
famous
news, like saying like fake news. अगर
fake
मैं इसको
news
एक
or
अगर एक phrase में उसको बंद करें जो कि fake news, by the way, who is listening from outside
yeah,
the US, fake news
yeah,
refers is a term that the ex-president use a lot,
yeah, fake news
especially
or
to
alternate facts, alt facts.
alternate, yeah, alt facts, or yeah,
I
so they
think a
use.
better a better phrase to capture this would be having your cake and eating it too. And honestly, there's a
Mhm.
story behind this. I actually took me a while to understand what this meant, right? Having your cake and eating it too. Have you ever
Wouldn't you
thought
eat
about
it if
that
it was
phrase?
cake? Wouldn't you
No,
eat?
so you want to have
Mhm.
the cake, right? You make the cake, and it's a
Right.
beautiful cake, and
Hmm.
you want to have it. That's yours. You want to keep it,
Right.
and then you want to eat it, right? What's your favorite cake?
Um, a Pakistani cake, I would say pineapple. I don't know.
Okay, pineapple cake, right?
Right.
Like बहुत ही खूबसूरत pineapple cake बना हुआ है, right?
Right.
And you like it's Instagram worthy, right? You know
Uh-huh.
that if you post it, you're gonna get 10,000 likes on it. Okay, but the thing is, everybody wants to eat that cake,
Hmm.
and that's what people want to do. You can't both eat the cake and have it at the
And
same time.
okay, you mean the cake cannot exist outside of your stomach and inside at the same time?
Yes, and that's what relative morality is. You're saying that you want to have justice be done to you whenever some injustice happens to you, but you don't want to be accountable when you're doing that injustice.
Correct. Correct. Acha, so how do you think that relates to um, some of the modern postmodern world philosophical arguments when that kind of like pushes the human mind to think towards there's a relative morality, because that it in itself, like you said, murder, chalo theek hai, maybe is pe koi bahas na kare, lekin there are other elements which are less serious in nature, but are more serious from an intellectual standpoint. Like
Mhm,
one of the things that we were discussing offline, which is what led to the discussion,
mhm.
is identity, right?
Identity, yes.
So
And mhm, go ahead.
where do you think uh, that is drawing inspiration from?
So,
Like how does
again, that
relative morality kind of like pushes you in that direction, especially when we are of the point of view that philosophy is good, logic is good,
well,
and then
so
we're
this
now we're
this is
moving
where
towards that.
this is where when Nietzsche comes and announces the death of God, right? Before
Hmm.
God, before the death of God, God is the ultimate barometer of good and evil,
True.
of what is moral and immoral,
Hmm.
right? Even if you're an atheist, you still live in within a society that follows the either the Abrahamic, the Buddhist, or whatever, the Dharmic, whatever religious
Hmm.
code, right?
Hmm.
But our good friend Friedrich Nietzsche came and murdered God or announced the murder of God.
Hmm.
What defines, so what is the barometer of good and evil now? It's your own relative self.
Hmm.
You are saying that innately I know what is good and what is wrong,
Hmm.
right? So, okay, that works for most things, right? Like murder, right? We all
Hmm.
agree murder is bad. Okay, that works for things like we shouldn't poison uh people, we shouldn't kill innocent people, right? Or we shouldn't punish collective punishment.
Hmm.
But is it though?
अच्छा इसमें एक अच्छा दिमाग में सवाल आया क्योंकि this is what I've read as well, and this some of the arguments towards identity self identification, अगर उसको मैं
Mhm,
बोलूँ lightly.
mhm,
So all of these examples that we put forward, like murder or whatever,
mhm.
right?
These are
The
outside examples. Yeah.
moralities that surround those examples have an impact on an external person than yourself.
Mhm.
ठीक है? For example, I could murder someone and try and justify it, but then again, your justification has an impact on a third person. ठीक
Okay,
है?
so let me give you a on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Drinking alcohol. So God is
True.
dead, right? We live in a
Yeah.
world where God is dead.
Mm-hmm.
So Sharia Muhammadi doesn't exist. The Jewish law doesn't exist. So no religious law exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because God is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Sarosh wants to drink.
Right.
I want cognac, right? So God is dead. I want to drink cognac or I want to drink vodka, right? I drink.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
I'm drinking. Okay, I'm having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I know how to drive. I know my limits. I get in the car. I start driving.
Yep.
Why do the laws stop me? Because originally, banning of alcohol comes from moral. It's actually there is a thing where on alcohol, even in the United States, like things like tobacco and alcohol and prostitution and things like this, There's a tax on it, and it's called the sin tax.
Hmm.
SINTAX. Not
Hmm.
syntax as in grammar,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I
syntax,
know.
right? I'm saying it for your listeners
Yeah.
outside of the United States who may not uh,
Hmm.
catch what I'm saying. And what
Hmm.
that says is it's a morality tax because these are moral vices.
Hmm.
But if relative morality, I say I want to drink, there should be no problem with that. But the
And why
thing
should
is,
I pay more tax? Yeah.
yeah, why should I pay that tax?
Hmm.
Because the thing is, it relative morality in essence promotes selfishness and individualism.
It does. You're right.
But the thing that we forget is even if we have something that is more moral on the surface level and using legal term prima facie or
Hmm.
prima facie, it doesn't affect other people. It still affects other people because if I get drunk, if I drink, I'm inebriated, I start operating a motorized vehicle and I go hit someone
Right.
and they get paralyzed or injured.
But then we don't get to, again. Usme, then you
Now,
can draw a line. You draw a line. But
no,
with
no, I
identity,
so but
how do
let
you
me
draw
talk
that line
about
with
some
identity?
let me talk about something that is very controversial and I know we kind of agreed we wouldn't, right?
Hmm.
Do you as a parent have a right to raise your kid as you see fit?
Yes.
Well, I come along and I say, you know what? I identify as a woman, right?
Hmm.
And according to the textbook definition of a woman, I do not fit into that description, right?
Hmm.
And
You
I
mean the
come into
biological
the
definition?
biological, yeah, yeah,
Because there's a difference, right? They say
yeah,
कि हम biological sex different चीज होती है and then gender is different.
yeah,
That's what
w-
identity comes from, right? They say
yeah.
we're not talking about biological sex. We're not saying कि कोई biologically कोई बंदा चलता हुआ जा रहा है and they all of a sudden call themselves. Obviously, they will eventually go there
Mhm.
with through
You would think, yeah,
surgery and whatnot. So, yeah, but
but there are
even
many people that don't.
yeah, there are many people that don't exactly.
Yeah. So,
But their argument is कि मैं like on paper अगर मैं सिर्फ बात करूँ उनकी तरफ से
mhm,
right to play the devil's like not their devils but you know what I mean.
but they're
Um,
advocates on the
yeah,
other
but
side, yeah.
on the other side they say कि us identifying some as something is something we are looking at from a gender perspective. अब एक तो मुझे नहीं पता कि gender और sex की definition अलग कब हुई. I thought
Mhm,
खास आम ज़बान में दोनों चीज़ें एक ही
mhm.
it's like one is
It's
used for the other.
interchangeable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interchangeable.
Mhm,
But what they say is that the roles that are assigned to each sex
mhm,
is where the gender fluidity does not happen. That's where this is coming from because it
mhm,
says if you are a woman then you are supposed to act in this way. If you are a man then you're supposed to act this way. And then to be fair, a lot of religions kind of does give
impose.
you that
Yeah.
that that
Mhm,
that not like to extreme level but at least एक generic understanding तो होती है कि man की responsibilities हैं, woman की responsibility बच्चे की है,
mhm,
बुड्ढे की
mhm,
है. So
mhm,
all of this, every religion does define that. They're against it. They're saying why should something that I don't identify it as should that be imposed on me? If I am a woman who likes to dress in men clothes, or vice versa, or want to marry whomever I want,
mhm.
why is religion or morality interfering in those decisions?
And that's so my question on that would be is where do we draw the line where your individual rights, because here's the thing, like I asked you, you have a daughter, you have the right to raise your daughter the way you see fit, right?
Right, right,
And you want to, for instance, I'm assuming you want to raise your daughter to believe that she is going to grow up biologically into the gender of a woman,
right,
right? Eventually, I'm assuming when she becomes baligh or whatever, you would want to encourage her to do hijab or
right,
whatever, right?
right.
Or, so the thing is, she's a small child. How old is your daughter? 2 years, right?
Three,
Two,
three, 3 years.
3 years, right? So next couple of years, she's gonna start school.
Hmm.
A person cross-dressing, whatever they want to do, that's their business. I agree. But how do you explain to a 5-year-old
Hmm.
that that person looks like daddy, but they identify as the same thing as mommy?
Hmm. But that they can be like, but that's your problem. Why should that be
Yeah,
my problem?
so and well, then my thing would be you defining yourself as a woman or a man or as a chicken for all I care. That's your
Mm.
problem. Why do I have to deal with that headache with my kid?
Yeah, okay, fair.
Morally speaking, right?
Mm.
You're saying that don't impose societal views on me, but are you not assigning
Doing the same.
society? And yeah, you're doing the exact same. That goes back to the whole drinking example, right?
Mm.
Relative morality, right? Like morally speaking, like so as a drunkard, I could go, why are you like it's not my fault that you went out in the middle of the night. You know that there's drunk people out there. Why did you, Zabai, go out in the middle of the night?
It's like it's like a thief
It is.
saying कि भाई आपने दरवाजा क्यों खोला था? अब दरवाजा खुला
Exactly.
हुआ था तो मैं तो आऊँगा, चोरी तो करूँगा मैं।
Exactly.
आपने दरवाजा क्यों
Exactly.
खोला? So
Yeah.
are we saying in that instance is the people are the people who get robbed, are they equally responsible?
I mean,
Uh,
according to relative morality, yes. I
right?
mean, if you get murdered, it's your fault. Why did
Yeah,
you
today
walk into
why did
like why did you repeatedly walk into my knife?
knowing that it hurts the first time, you still did
Exactly.
it.
Exactly.
No, I mean that's the thing, right? What really
And
intrigues me.
look, I
No,
I
but
I respect people for defining themselves as they are. That is their right, right?
absolutely.
But does that mean that you get to impose your views on others?
No. देखो मसला ये आता है ना कि they what uh, people who identify or they have different views to us,
Hmm.
what they are generally afraid of is persecution, ठीक है, or discrimination, ठीक है. Well,
Hmm.
I am of a view that nobody should be discriminated against based on
Definitely.
what they think or what they
Hmm.
believe and what they identify
Of course.
as religiously or socially or whatever, right?
Hmm.
Um, but these are nuanced discussion. Not everything which is opposed is leading towards persecution or discrimination. ठीक है?
Exactly. Now,
I could still treat you as an equal human being and disagree with you
hmm,
and disagree with your worldview,
hmm,
right? I can still treat like there's human beings are designed in a way where there's this possibility exists.
hmm.
जानवर की तरह नहीं है कि if a जानवर loves you then it loves you and if it hates you तो it won't say
There's
यार चल मुझे खाना दे देता है चलो मैं तब उससे प्यार कर लूंगा या चलो
hmm,
ठीक है जाने दो. No, it will attack you when it hates you. It will attack you.
yeah, yeah.
तो ह्यूमन बीइंग्स में वो nuance मौजूद है. That's why I keep telling people, especially from the LGBTQ community,
Hmm,
who tend to push that their viewpoint, and they
hmm,
have every right to do so. They have every right to propagate their viewpoint, just like I have.
hmm,
But that does that's where it stops, right? It
hmm.
stops at propagation. It doesn't become the law of the land. It doesn't become
Yeah,
the norm,
yeah.
or they shouldn't expect it to be normal. That
Like
this
it
is
shouldn't nor like I would say you have the right to exist and not be persecuted, but that does not mean that I have to accept you.
or agree with you.
Agree with
Simple as
your
that.
yeah, exactly. Like here's the thing. So I live in Texas, and there's
Mm,
parts of Texas, even near Austin, that are still Ku Klux Klan territory. If you want to explain to some of your
mhm.
viewers outside of the U.S. what the Ku Klux Klan is, I'll let you do
Oh,
that first.
well, they're white supremacist to
Yeah.
put it
They're neo
lightly.
Nazis, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the neo-Nazis. Yeah,
yeah, and they hate black people.
they hate
So
every other race,
yeah,
basically.
so we're okay with them existing. They're allowed to have this opinion and this view that where they think every other race, especially African Americans, are of lower
Inferiors.
value,
Yeah,
inferiors. Yes, but that doesn't mean that if that we genuinely we let them openly express that view, right? Likewise, you and and this may and I, no, I'm not comparing, you know,
that's what they was.
LGBTQ with a Nazi, right, or with
Yeah.
a Klansman. But what I'm saying here is that there are places, for instance, there are these folks who, especially when gay marriage was first legalized, right? There were bakeries that were owned by people who were devout Christians who
Mm,
felt that they could not accept business, right? And they could not accept income coming from something that was
Morally incorrect.
morally morally yes, corrupted and
Mhm.
against their beliefs, right?
Right, right.
For instance, and this is even for my woke Muslim friends, right? Like who go like, oh no, if a gay marriage is happening and they want to cater food from you, that it should be okay. Well, let me ask you this: would you go and buy non-halal meat? Could you own a liquor store?
और अगेन देखो अगर उसको सिंप्लीफाई करें ना
Hmm.
तो फिर वो आ जाता है ना कि दे से कि अब जैसे तुमने राइटफुली यू सेड दैट यू नॉट कंपेयरिंग नियो नाजीज टू people of fluid gender or fluid identity or whatever you want to call them.
Hmm.
That's not the comparison. The thing is, who says, and this is a genuine question, who says it's
Hmm.
okay for any other community to express what they believe in
Hmm.
and have their day and celebrate it
Hmm.
versus another community who has a different another belief,
Hmm.
in this instance neo-Nazis, to
Hmm.
have their day and propagate and all of that, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
Hmm.
you can say, you will say, no, no, the one idea is detriment to um, public welfare.
Yeah.
The other idea is not so. And I will then my question would be, how did you decide that? How did you
Yeah.
decide what's detrimental and what's not? It's like, oh, physical
Exactly.
harm, usme physical harm hota hai. They're saying that you should not exist physically, and
Hmm.
isme wo, they don't say कि that you don't exist physically. Okay, who's
Hmm.
then another question comes into me. So is physical harm more than psychological harm, or non-physical harm? Is that what we were deciding? No, 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 we're not deciding that. So it means mental illness is not real then. बहुत सारे लोग तब तो ये कहते हैं ना, और rightfully so, that mental illness and depression and all of this
Hmm.
misleading
Hmm.
alternative facts,
Hmm.
these are detrimental. I mean, to quote Mr. uh, what's that guy, the God Delusion जिसने लिखी थी, I forgot his name.
Uh, Richard Dawkins.
Richard Dawkins, he's of the view that people who teach their children religion, he thinks that's a worst form of child manipulation, to say the least,
Or
or
yeah, yeah.
और कुछ एक्सट्रीम वर्ड इस्तेमाल किया था उसका, कि इट्स बेसिकली harassment. I don't remember क्या word था वो, but he, the crux was that he considered that to be a crime to teach children religion, because he thinks that that curtails their freedom to think openly.
Hmm.
So he thinks, right? So in that instance, कि जब किसी आइडिया को प्रोपोगेट किया जाता है एंड यू फील लाइक वो आइडिया इज अ वर्स्ट फॉर्म ऑफ ह्यूमन attack, then you kind of try, and you say, atheists for example say that religion should not be propagated because it curtails a free thinking society. ठीक है.
Now, so I have a question for them.
Mm-hmm.
How do you define religion? What is
Right.
religion?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So God is dead. You still have a
Mhm.
religion. Like for instance, I'll give you the greatest example of a religion that does not revolve around a deity. And actually, many people in the West practice it, including Keanu Reeves. Buddhism.
Buddhism, yes.
Buddhism does not have a god, right, or a godhead, or even a multitude of gods.
Mm-hmm.
It's a philosophy, right, with a set of beliefs and practices. What is
Right.
atheism?
Set of philosophy.
With it's a philosophy with a set of beliefs and practices.
Right.
And what you are attacking, evangelicals and the Tablighi Jamaat for going and propagating, Christianity and Islam. But are the atheists not doing the same thing? When was the last time you saw someone like a Shia or even a
Right.
normal Sunni or a normal Catholic or Christian go up to a quote unquote secular or atheist क्या कहते हैं, community, right?
Uh,
Let's if they have a community or a group and say, you know what? Let me talk and give you the good news. Or, oh, you're stupid for not believing in God.
right. ऊपर
Most,
से आए basically.
yeah, most people that are religious and devout, it's a personal matter.
Hmm.
They're not imposing their views on to other people.
Hmm.
However, that doesn't mean like that if, for instance, I have a mosque, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is open. Like we have the Batul, it's open to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain rules and regulations because it is based on a religious belief system, right?
Mm.
If, for instance, within the Batul, if someone starts coming in and starts going Father and Son and Holy Spirit, and in the name of I give you the good news of the
Glad
Son of
tidings.
the glad tidings of the coming of the Son of God,
Hmm.
we would, the members of that community, yourself included, would and the leadership would say, "Hey, buddy, this is not. You can't. You were not saying you can't have those beliefs, but you cannot propagate those beliefs here.
Right.
Why is it that that's okay? But then if someone says I am gay, and Islam says or Christianity says we do not not even allow, forget allowance. It's not even about allowance. It's about recognition. We do not recognize a matrimonial union between people of the same gender or
Right.
same um, sex, then why is it that it's called homophobic when they say that you are not letting us get married at this venue? And here's the thing: in maybe in the U.S., like a lot of places, we can argue that um, that well, nobody's coming to Sabah or Batul or ICZ to get married, but come to Houston. I can show you some, or like Masjid Al High in
Uh,
Orlando, right? It's a beautiful masjid. I would want to get married there. So
hmm.
it's quite possible that someone who's gay, they see that venue, they want to get married at. I'm pretty sure if they go to the organizers, uh, they're going to be like, no, this is not okay in our
Allow it
religion.
there. Yeah.
It's not even
So,
we don't recognize it. So,
and
but
that's
why
that
was
creates the conflict, right? That's the
yeah?
conflict that we're trying to address. That's we're saying.
Hmm.
That's why we're saying, okay, if for example two sets of people have different conflicting views
Hmm.
and different conflicting moralities.
Hmm.
I said different conflicting, it's the same thing. But
Hmm.
conflicting moralities and conflicting views, that's where I feel like there has to be a need
Hmm.
for a an ultimate morality or an ultimate
Yes.
truth, right?
And what do you
Because
base that?
yeah, exactly. Because मेरा दिमाग, and I'm sure किसी का भी दिमाग, any mind in the world would not accept it at के everything is right,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Everything can be wrong. Both sides can be wrong, but both sides cannot be right. One of them has to be right.
And this
ठीक
is
है?
where, and honestly, if you look at it, the people that throw the accusation with what we started with, right? That philosophy is very confusing
Hmm.
and it's overly complicates things. Well, you are in this predicament. Is this not an overly complicated predicament where you have two conflicting moral standpoints,
Right?
and one of them has to be right because
Or
if
both
they're
have to
both
be wrong.
yeah, or they both have to be wrong because otherwise, and there has to be, and if they're both wrong, there has to be
Something right, yeah. तो wrong
something
against
has to,
something होगा ना
yeah,
कि तभी तो कह रहे wrong है ये, क्योंकि there has to be
because
something right
how
for
do
it to
you
work.
base your understanding of the universe if there is no right or wrong, right?
And it's always relative. Then there's nothing.
What
There's
what's
तो कल
what's
कानून है.
stopping, yeah, what's stopping you from committing the purge? Because
Hmm?
you're arguing that, oh, this is, I identify as whatever I want. Okay, let me flip it up. So identity, is it just based on gender
No.
or nationality? I think we actually kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
humored that a little bit.
Yeah.
If I want to identify as a person from the German Federation,
Mm-hmm.
right, as a German citizen, why do I have to get the government involved? Or shouldn't I should be allowed to declare myself as a German, and then
Or
I want the same rights and treatments that the Germans have in Germany.
Hmm. I want to vote in Germany. और
Yeah, I
और
want to
इससे
be
भी
able to.
और इससे भी ज़्यादा nuanced example जो हमने डिस्कस किया था
Hmm.
was people living in other people's communities, right? If you live in
Hmm.
a Mexican community, if you live in a
Yeah.
an African American community, or even a
Hmm.
Muslim community, and if you're
Hmm.
not from that community originally,
Hmm.
you pick up traits from that community. So you
Hmm.
walk and talk like that community, you even dress like them, and then to a very large extent, you start feeling like them because you
And then
feel for them.
you know what happens? Then you get this whole the same people, this, and honestly they are the same people. They're the people, liberals, I'll say,
Uh-huh.
okay,
Hmm.
who will come and say you're culturally appropriating. So would you not say that a man who'd identify a transgender are they not culturally appropriating what a woman is, or a woman who's um, uh, cross-dressing as a man, that they're
Right.
culturally appropriating the right. What is the culture of a man?
Yeah. It means they accept it that there's
So why
that's
is that cultural appropriation or gender appropriation okay? But if I grew up in a predominantly Hispanic or predominantly a white or Asian or South Asian community, that if I do that and I don't happen to necessarily belong to that community, that it becomes cultural appropriation and it's inappropriate.
exactly. Why can't I feel like यार सब कुछ तो मैं कर रहा हूँ as the African Americans do? Let me just paint myself black and basically call it
Yeah,
a day. And they I
yeah,
would
but
be
then
considered a
then
big
then you
racist.
get accused of blackfacing.
Exactly. So that's the thing. कि इस सब चीजें again, when I'm not presenting and nor are you not presenting any solution. These are questions.
These
These
are
are
questions. Yeah, we don't
these are
have the
questions.
answers,
I mean,
and
we do, but that's the
I
thing, right?
mean, but people
First
are
we
not
have
ready
to
to accept those answers.
That's but we first need to accept, acknowledge that there are questions. You
Hmm.
can't क्योंकि जिस तरीके से ये चीज़ें fluidity and orientation, all of these things are presented as facts. I mean, one sad thing that I think I shared with you as well, and
Hmm.
I know you have to go somewhere as well. So I'll quickly sum it up. कि एक वीडियो मैंने तुमसे शेयर करी थी. Remember the one which Neil deGrasse Tyson is talking
Yes.
to what's his name Ben Shapiro,
Hmm.
right? Where he kind of like says, on the face of scientific uh, discovery and evidence, that orientation and gender definitions are not genetic. ठीक है ये आपके जीन्स में नहीं होता कि होता है ना कि आई वाज born this way. That's no
Hmm.
longer factual
Scientific. Okay.
because क्योंकि PBS की जो 2019 की सबसे बड़ी research थी on sexual behavior that basically
Hmm.
said that sexual orientation has a lot to do with external factors, where you're born, where you're
Hmm.
like who you're surrounded with. So
Hmm.
it's wreaked in influence. ठीक है.
Hmm. Hmm.
तो उस बेसिस पे बेन शपीरो से पूछा था कि भाई अब तो रिसर्च आ गई, व्हाट डू यू से अबाउट दैट. तो हिज रिस्पांस टू दैट वाज, which was I found really really sad, because as a scientist I would have expected him to be like, you know what, that's sows the truth, them's the rules, right?
Hmm.
Follow the rules. So he said, okay, no, I what do I do with that information? Do I then start sending people who call themselves as born this way to like a correctional facility or something like that? But that's not the that's your proposing that. I didn't say that.
Yeah.
But whatever the solution is, but you cannot just keep saying ke ye okay hai. You would still say, okay, by the way, I don't say that this is scientific. You weren't born this way, you chose to be this way, and
Hmm.
therefore you can live this way if you want to, but don't
Hmm.
say that. Don't
And
say that you were born this way.
honestly, on that argument, I would even say, okay, you talk to someone like that, right? They will say it's not scientific. So then you're like, okay, so you chose to be this. No, I didn't choose. So what? How did you come to this understanding, right?
Right,
And
right.
okay, so on that, I would say that look, like you said, I'm pretty, and again, I do not endorse Ben Shapiro for 99.9% of the things.
100%. Yeah, me too.
But the thing is, did Ben Shapiro ask you, Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist, that what is your solution to people science not recognizing uh, this being a scientific or genetic uh, cause, or did he just say, "Hey, this is a research. What do we do with this?" The fact, to me, Neil deGrasse Tyson and actually all the folks on the left, unfortunately, on this, and as a leftist, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this.
Mhm.
They don't want to acknowledge because here's the thing: no one's asking you for a solution. They're
No.
asking you for an acknowledgement of you don't know. And to be honest with you, you are trying to impose something. And the thing is, until you are willing to acknowledge that, you have to understand, yes, you believe that. Let's say even 50% of the US, right? And the
Right,
West.
right,
So white people, I'm
right.
sorry, let's say Western thinking, right? 50% of Western philosophy.
Mhm.
The world's population of the West, what is called the West, right, is what? Let's say at best it's like 20%
Mhm.
of the world's population. And you're saying you're 10% of that, right? So 10% of the world population believes this. What about the other 90%?
Right.
because
नहीं और
according to you, morality is relative.
राइट और जो मेजॉरिटी विंस
So
और दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि why doesn't the same rule apply to people of religious background, right?
yes.
I like for every cent I could get if I ask for a cent for every time an atheist attacks or a scientist attacks religious people or Muslims, I would
Mhm,
be you know swimming in cash. But
mhm,
the point is कि वो वहाँ पर उस वक्त क्यों नहीं बोलते कि
mhm,
we have discovered that this is how this is scientific and this is not scientific, but let's not go anywhere further with that. Let people believe
mhm,
what they want to believe. No, they say कि no, क्योंकि हमें डिस्कवर कर लिया है कि ये सब चीज़ें ऐसे होती हैं और ये सब इन चीज़ों की कॉजेशन ये है, therefore religion की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है. No, why are you making that extra step? And in this
maybe
instance,
it's not
because it
for you.
happens to be a left, because it happens to be a left inclining
Mhm,
issue, and you feel like you're gonna get a lot of hate, you're
mhm,
letting go of science now
mhm.
because so it doesn't even fall onto the principles that you have created for yourself, and you use them to murder other people like intellectually. So
And
that's what
this
really
is what happens. This is
yeah,
what happens when you have no relative morality, because at
he made a
because
call, to hold back this information. He made
yeah,
a
because
call, this
and
conscious part.
on what basis?
Yeah.
On what basis? Because if the news came out the other way, if the
He would
research,
use it. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
why is
He
it
wouldn't
and
he
who?
wouldn't say कि यार के हाँ आ गई research, but people who don't believe this is the right way to go, let them live that way. No, he will push it on their faces and say, oh, by the way, believe it because now it's true. Will you do the same thing for a flat earther, by the way? क्या उसको आप
Yeah,
दुनिया की तस्वीरें नहीं दिखाओगे जाके या बोलोगे हाँ it's okay for you to believe flat earthing and अपनी अपनी generations को भी ये सिखाओ
and because
कि flat.
here's the thing, because they're arguing that this is the reason that we are against, for instance, going back to the whole Ku Klux Klan, right? The
Uh-huh.
Klansmen rally, but we're okay with Pride Month, is because
Uh-huh.
Pride Month is not hurting anyone. Well, the flat earther isn't hurting anyone.
Yeah, why do you like give shit to them every
Yeah,
second
what
you get?
if anything? There's that guy's just an idiot, right? Like, let him be.
Exactly.
Like, why are you wasting your brain cells arguing with them and trying to disprove their viewpoints?
Yeah. Oh my God. Like imagine so many scientists, like big names, have actually made videos on this. I'm like, why are you engaging?
Why? And that shows me that your egos are so small.
Yeah, they just want to pick on. They want to
Yeah,
show off. That's where it comes to.
because they are morally blank.
Hmm.
There is so what it is because the the reason why people don't like philosophy, right, is because it makes us think about more things that affect us and what we claim to believe, right? It makes us question things. It makes
Hmm.
us question our own values and our own beliefs, right? I want to believe I'm a morally righteous person, that I always do the right thing. I pay my taxes. I mow
Hmm.
my lawn. I see I see the Girl Scout, I buy cookies from them to empower women. I believe in feminism. I believe in people being not discriminated and persecuted. But do I actually believe that?
Hmm.
And and what I'm saying, does that actually, can I back that up? Can I put my money where my mouth is?
Yeah.
But people don't want to do that because it's easier, right? Because there's a word in Urdu, alsi.
Yeah.
हम सब आलसी हैं.
Yeah.
It's
We just yeah.
easier to just, even in the face of evidence, say, yeah, that's fine, but we don't believe that, than it is
But
to
ये
say
तो
that.
ये इसी चीज़ पे तो हम गाली हम खा रहे थे ना like
Mhm.
so called in their head they were like हम आपको undeniable evidence दे रहे हैं कि God doesn't exist and you're still not agreeing to it because 1400 years ago someone said something.
So here's the thing, what is that undeniable evidence?
नहीं वो तो हमें नहीं मैं तो सिर्फ कह रहा हूँ ना कि इस पे जब आप दूसरे को जूते मार रहे थे when you were making fun and mocking people for doing that in your head you were at least you had undeniable evidence that God doesn't exist,
But
right?
that's the thing, they
As
don't. That's the
नहीं
thing, they
in your
don't.
head वो तो कह रहा हूँ in their head they thought कि चलो हमारे पास undeniable evidence है in reality they don't, of course, and even like someone like Neil deGrasse agrees to that. In some
Mhm,
of his interviews I've seen him say कि I'm not going to come here and say that we have undeniable ultimate proof कि that doesn't exist, ठीक है,
mhm,
but he said कि हमारे पास ये proof नहीं, चलो वो अलग debate है, but the thing is कि when in their heads a lot of like someone like Rich Dawkins, he's an adamant believer of there's no god and there shouldn't be any religion because he thinks religion is evil. So
Mhm.
for him to attack people of religion because they didn't accept evidence, and now you have evidence, why aren't you propagating that evidence? Now just because it just happens to be on your side of the aisle, then there's no difference between you and the so-called people that you were blaming earlier. Then you're all in the same
Because mhm. Because in reality, going back to that, right? This is why
mm,
relative morality is a great position to have
yep.
because I can keep changing the goalpost.
Yes. Yes.
Because and why do I change the goalpost? Because it's what is changing the goalpost? I mean, you're a big fan of soccer, or
Hmm.
as they say, football, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If I
As
come and
everybody
change,
else say.
yeah. So if I move the goalpost, and the striker, as Ali Bhai pointed out, the striker,
Uh,
right,
uh-huh.
comes kicks the ball, right? What's his name? Ronaldo kicks the ball,
Right.
but I come and I move the goalpost. I say no,
Right.
the ball's not in.
Because it's not in the goal, but like
Yeah,
that's where the
in
goal
my
was.
perspective, the goal's
Uh-huh.
not in,
Hmm.
and I keep doing that. And then when it comes to your side, I come in goal and I score the goal, and I say no, 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 you can't move it.
Yep. That's the danger. That's the danger.
But that's why, for instance, in football, you have a set of rules.
Hmm.
Just like that is the even if we were not going with morality, right? Or there being a big spaghetti monster in the sky, right?
Hmm.
And let's say there is no God, right?
Hmm.
But you still have some sort of rules. You cannot have relative morality. You have to have
You have a
morality.
bloody constitution. You have a bloody penal code. Yeah, every country has it.
Yep. And where do these things come from?
So of course
If
there is
there
no
if morality is relative, then laws should be relative because what
yeah.
are they based on?
They're
The
based on
the
moralities.
US laws, Western law, whether people like to admit it or not, come from the Judeo-Christian tradition of the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife,
Yeah.
thou shalt not, all these things. Like where, so if that's based on, so either you need to rewrite your constitutions.
Or don't have one. Say we
Yeah,
don't have a constitution. Everyone has their own.
it goes back to my argument of I want to identify as a German.
Yeah.
I want the German laws to be applied upon me.
Or I stand in front of a border officer and say, I feel I want to be in this country.
Yeah,
You
I
cannot deny.
feel like it's I
I feel
feel
like I
that way.
belong here. I feel like I
Yeah,
belong here. Can you
I
challenge
feel as an
my feelings?
American. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like an American. I like American football. I like eating an apple pie. I
Yeah.
like
I have the same accent.
yeah.
So
Even
no, he's
even
still gonna
people
ask you
actually
for
no, no,
proof.
no, even without having the accent, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel as American.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're not gonna allow it. Exactly. That's the thing. कि अब उस केस में तो वो उसकी उसकी पर्सनल लिबर्टीज है ना,
Hmm.
उसमें तो no one's getting hurt for by
Hmm.
him calling himself an American,
Hmm.
but you still stop him and say no, you're not
Hmm.
an American because you're there's no paperwork to prove that you are an American.
Hmm.
So please be who you actually are. So why
Hmm.
does it then flip? That's the talk, part about flipping the goalpost here and there. Okay, that you have different rules for different things when they are on surface and a lot of depth, the same thing. Khair,
Indeed.
anyway, this was, like I said, I mean, that's why I love having this discussion with you because it
Yeah,
just stimulates a lot of things in
it
my
does.
head and a
And
lot.
again, to any of your listeners out there, just because I may not agree with you on your views and I may think you're stupid and wrong, I still think you have the right to hold those opinions and you should not be persecuted and beaten up for those opinions, right?
Absolutely.
Just as I want to be able to practice my beliefs and live my life and enjoy my lifestyle the way
And
I
not be
want,
judged.
not be judged. I mean, it's okay to be judged, right? We all judge. That's okay.
Right, but then you
But I do
bucket
not
them,
want,
and then you
yeah,
you the
yeah,
thing is
I
about
don't
not.
want there to be
Yeah,
a negative consequence for my actions, right?
yeah.
Just like that, I wish you all the best.
Hmm.
However, I ask you to be a little philosophical
Yeah.
and think and reflect that what you're saying, are you saying this in an echo chamber where you're not affecting other people? Or are your beliefs and values having um, a impact on others.
Yeah. Yep. Well, appreciate your time. I know
Always a
you had
pleasure.
to go somewhere.
Yeah.
But
Thank you.
yeah, this was really good. Thank you so much, man. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.